So real quick, getting started, I wanted to start with a little bit of the GitHub stuff. I don't know how interested people are in that, but I wanted to kind of, just lay it down anyway. So we've been through this a little bit. There's this public repository. There are links to it everywhere. And you could always, if you're watching the video, you can just type this in, it'll come up. And if you're doing your own, you click this fork button and create your own fork, which is what I have. And yours should already be up to date when you create it. And then, on your own machine, you do like git clone and click this green button and like copy this URL and then paste it in. I'm not actually going to do it, obviously, because it would overwrite what's already in there. But okay, yeah. So you do all that stuff, and then you end up with it will make like a folder on your hard drive, right? So in my case, it looks like this. There's now a Python virtual environment in there. So if you get like, I don't know, these kind of errors, that's what that error is. Just in case anybody's curious why there's a big red thing. It's not anything to worry about. Yeah, it's like an alias that probably to my like local user bin that Dropbox can't sync. Anyway, so you'll get this folder on your hard drive, and with all the wrinkles that come with that, but then you have all the files, and I've sort of redone the way things work so that there's as straightforward as I could get it with a reasonable amount of work time. There's sort of a straightforward workflow. If anyone wants to use this, but you don't have to use this. So the reason I'm telling you about this is because it explains why things in here look different and why you do the things the way that you do. It's all because there is some code that will generate, or it will split up the lines from when you add a new page in the hieroglyphs. So if you want to go type in, I guess it was earlier this week, I typed in page 4. Oh no, I typed in page 3, sorry. I thought about doing page 4 and I decided to focus more on getting things organized. But this is a really good exercise. Just sit there with the transcript. I type this directly from Gardner's transcription. I'm not like trying to parse the hieratic or anything. I take that Bibliotheca Egyptiaca, volume 1, Horus and Set by Gardner, and I just type the hieroglyphs as I see them. And that's, if you can do this, you've probably got a really good handle of the hieroglyphic script. I would say you've got a excellent handle of the hieroglyphic script, because there are things like this one, I forget what this one is, G26B, like I can never remember that one. I've got to look it up. And I've typed hundreds of pages like this, and there's still things that I don't remember. So if anybody wants to take that on, like page 4 is just waiting to get filled in. It's just sitting here. If anybody's interested in like working with JSesh to type up hieroglyphic texts and kind of getting familiar with that, or you want to improve your knowledge of the script itself, like what phonetic values does each sign have, etc. Or how does it look when a certain Egyptologist writes that sign? That's a really useful thing to know because everybody writes them slightly differently. All of that, you get practice with that. Great way to do it, because if somebody does decide they want to try to type up page 4 and you get into trouble, you can always just ping me and ask for help. And because it's a GitHub repo, you can like commit things. You can set a point at the point where you get stuck and then push them to the web. I can pull down exactly what you're looking at and then help you get unstuck. So that might be a fun project for someone. Definitely very useful. Useful both for the class, because obviously this stuff has got to get in there somehow. And I mean, I'll do it or somebody else can do it. Doesn't really matter one way or the other. And also just very useful if, if you're aiming to sort of exercise certain skills, especially your knowledge of the script or how to use JSesh. And then the other main part of this task is the task of actually getting the nice hieratic lines. So if you look on the website, I've also redone this. Previously, we were using a Google Doc where I was just copying and pasting them all in. That's incredibly tedious and takes a long time. So I wanted to automate that, but then automating it also takes a long time. So there's this optimization where it's like, how much time do I spend automating versus how much time I would spend doing things manually, where it turned out to be about, I don't know, 2 hours or whatever spent automating. So definitely a choice that pays off in the long run. But then you get these hieratic signs. I've cropped them, in this case, using like rectangles, cropped exactly to the hieratic part that we want. So what that looks like is the pages are all here, ready to go. And like, let's say we want to work on page, let's say we want to, we can just do this, page 5. And then I'm just going to create like page 5 lines 1 through 3, hypothetically. I'm not going to actually do the whole thing because I don't want to spend that much time on it. But then if you have any familiarity with Photoshop, this should be a relatively straightforward task. You can see I've got all of line 1 in this box, Command C to copy it. However you do that a different way, whatever. And then paste as new image, however you do that. I have a shortcut set up, but I think it's pretty easy to do it by going through the menus, paste, clipboard, create, and then Command V to paste it in there. I can even do like Command Shift E, merge the layers down, and get a single background layer. Probably going to want to unlock that background layer. And then, you know, this is where it gets kind of manual, honestly, but I don't think there's another way to go about it. Hieratic lines, page 5. Let me just look at a previous page to remember how I've done this. I'm actually just going to click on the wrong name just to grab it, and then change it to page 5. Okay, we're off to the races, right? So the next one, now we're kind of on autopilot a little bit. Just paste into a new image, save it. Adobe has very helpfully added another step in their save dialog process for some reason to force you to pay for their cloud service, I think. But we're not going to do that. And then you saw how I did all of that. I'm just making sure. So now I know I'm on line 3 because I'm doing it so fast that I just remember which line I'm on. Make sure all of line 3 in the hieratic is within the box. Paste as new image. Save it. Grab the previous file name to do most of the typing for us. There's maybe even a more efficient way of doing that than the one I just chose, but you can see that like you could do an entire page of that in maybe 10 minutes. So maybe I should just sit down and do the entire text, honestly. But yeah, so that's that part of it. We're just going to undo any changes here. Just close that out. Don't want to save it. Let's just close out everything.
How do you do the little rectangles? That's the real challenge.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to next. So, and the thing is, I actually changed it for page 3. So like you can see, I've already done this for page 3. So there's the like, you know, large bounding boxes just sort of loosely around the line has already been done for all the lines in the page. And then page 1, I went back in and I did this, which I think is superior to the rectangles. So I can show you how to do both. Each one is perfectly simple. Let's use the next line I haven't done yet. If I want to do rectangles, I probably want to start by, I'm still going to use the marquee tool because it's just easier to use. Probably want to stop by like cropping, getting like a good tighter bounding box around the actual text I want. And then just switch to the crop tool and go ahead and crop it. And then, oof, I didn't do a great job with that. Notice how that sign, wait, this is the crop tool? Doesn't look like it. Okay, bug in Adobe there. This sign I feel like is a little too close to the edge for us to have kind of ample breathing room around it to make sure we can see what it is. So I'm just going to move things out a little bit, and you know, it's okay to make mistakes. You just, yeah, because everything's fixable, right? Like that's you know, there's undo, there's version control. We're using Git, so we can always roll back to a previous commit. I mean, if you really like screw the pooch, you just totally like you delete all the code or something. We can always just roll back to a previous commit or reject your pull request or whatever. And then, you know, that's one of the nice things about having like a Git clone is you can kind of play around. And if you want to get crazy and you end up screwing everything up, just delete that folder from your hard drive and run git clone again and replace it with a totally fresh copy and start again. So there's really no way to screw anything up. You might as well mess around and have fun with it. Okay, so I'm going to do, I have to at least unlock the background layer. I want to save this as a PNG with the transparency layer. So what I'll probably do for the boxes, what I kind of did was, okay, so like here's a big chunk that I can take where it's like mostly, it's just kind of like maximizing how much area of the unwanted text I take out while minimizing the number of total rectangles used to give it like less of a jagged look to it. And I'm just pressing delete, right? I'm just selecting part of the text and pressing delete. Something went wrong there. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so that's how I did the rectangles originally, and then just save it, you know, like you would anything else.
On the iPhone, when you're editing a photo, you can like sort of slightly rotate to straighten out images.
Oh, yeah.
Can you do that on here too?
Yeah, it's not quite as convenient. So there's a couple ways to do it that I know of. One way might be to just take this, let's just paste it as a layer. And then you can just sort of slightly rotate. And you can
straighten the line. Yeah, and then you can crop it in without having the terraces or something.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Good idea.
I have to admit, it hadn't really occurred to me to do that. So yeah, that's a great idea. Just make the line is, you know, the lines are handwritten lines, so they kind of jog up and down, but if you get it sort of mostly within a box, then you're in good shape. Let's accept that and then just trash that layer. And then, well, now I don't know. I feel like I actually should have done this before the first crop though. That's where it gets tricky. So let's see how we would do that. So, okay, so just to clarify what I'm saying, like this big blank diagonal line that's going to still be in there when we finish, pretty much no matter how we slice it, right? I'm gonna end up with this sort of big line. It's not too bad, but I think in theory, that's not the way we wanna do it. Let's go all the way back to this before changing anything. And then command apostrophe turns on the background grid. And then I can do that same thing, like kind of a kludge, honestly, just like copy and paste it into a new layer. And then it automatically becomes like an object that I can manipulate. And then I can use that grid to try to see where I get it straight and where the boundary lines are. Honestly, Dante, as much as I love the suggestion, I think I'm probably still not going to do this because just looking at it here, I'm noticing some things like all this part of the line feels like it's falling over frontwards to me.
It kind of looks like it's shaped like this almost. I don't know if that's in the original or it's just distorted now.
Oh, that's in the original.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, and I still kind of get that here. But anyway, so okay, so hypothetically, you could do it either of these two ways. The first way, I've just shown you the entire process. Start here and rotate, or start with cropping and then crop out little rectangles, however you want to go about it. The way that I tried with the first line of this that I actually liked much better is the lasso tool. What is this? Yeah, polygonal lasso tool. And then I think I like this way mainly just because it's fun. So I'm going to turn off the grid. Again, that was command apostrophe. And then you just get to like, see, this is like a polygon tool. Wherever I click, it sets a point. And then you just get to actually like zoom around and select just the text itself. It even helps with dealing like this descender comes down a little bit into the sort of the space between this giant Horus falcon and then the bird on a stick classifier. But I can just kind of jog around it just a little bit, and then it produces a really nice result. So this is my personal preferred method. There's no right or wrong way, just as long as everybody can read the text, you know, it's good. And like even here, so I've got a little lacuna here that's a bit confusing because it's also overlaying some ink. It's hard to tell what's text and what's the lacuna because they're the same color for some stupid reason. But I'll just go ahead and address that in a small way by getting all of this lacuna in this line and leaving all of this one out. So once I've cut it all out and you're left with just what I've chosen to keep in, it won't be ambiguous about, you know, what's going on. It'll be plain to see like, okay, there's clearly like a huge lacuna here. This part, let's see, let me back up a couple steps. I might want to do something a little bit like this and even get a little too much of the higher level signs in there. Like there's this descender on the horned viper from the previous line that, I mean, I could do a really complicated jog around that, but then you'll see it in the results. You'll see this really complicated shape. It's kind of better to have a simpler shape with like a very obvious intrusion, maybe. I mean, you just use your judgment, right? If anybody wants to do this kind of thing. I think it's probably less useful than typing up the pages, but I wouldn't say it's not useful at all. And then with when you have a selection in Photoshop, Command-Shift-I inverts the selection. So I had this little region selected, and when I inverted the selection, I now have everything outside of that region. And then when I press delete, all that's left in the photo is what's inside the region. I think there's a fairly easy way to crop it to the line, but you know, no matter. It's fine like this. It can have a little bit of white space above and below. I'll probably purposely leave the white space on the side because that will keep everything aligned when it's actually like in the website itself. That will keep the lines at their original alignment. Because notice when I created these in the first place from the main page, it's not still up anymore. But when I created them, I took that big bounding box and I just moved it exactly, you know, one line down each time. So they're all the same width. They're all uniform width. They're all in their relative positions in the original text, but they've just been sort of like blown apart so that we can put the hieroglyphs in between. So I'm probably not going to do much of any cropping on this. What else might I want to do? Oh yeah, there are these guys here. I can do something a little bit more sophisticated here where I'll use a brush and a layer mask. It's too strong. Let's use like a big blurry brush. That's not working out too well, is it?
Just play it with maybe eraser.
Well, I could use the eraser, but what I'm doing right now is equivalent to the eraser. I'm using a layer mask, and I'm using a brush inside the layer mask. So if I'll just invert this selection real quick, so you can see that I'm actually like making things invisible. And if I view just the mask itself, how do you do that? Shift, is it shift? Anyone remember how to view a mask by itself in Photoshop? Oh, there we go. It's Alt, by the way. So what I'm actually doing in this mask is I'm drawing black where I want things to be taken out, and it's everything I want to be kept in is white. So that means I can actually have. Oops, I thought it was Alt. It seemed to have worked last time. Yeah. So just sorry, my Photoshop skills are very you know, practical. They're ad hoc. Like I know how to do the things that I need to do when I need to do them. What the hell happened here? I think we might have crashed. Anyway, so the goal there was to use the layer mask to just kind of soften the darkness of this. So I'll go into the layer mask again. Let's just delete everything. That will set it back to white, and then let's view both of them together. And then I can go in here and don't have the mask selected. I was just drawing on the layer itself. Here's go in here and just soften that a little bit. And I can also soften this a little bit. That was probably a bit too much.
So it's probably good for our purposes, but quick question, Christian. It looks a bit pixely, as if the original resolution was not that high.
This is the max. This is the max I've been able to obtain.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
for better or worse.
You can see how the stroke goes and everything. So
yeah, this is it is a little pixelated. It's not as high as I would like it to be. But it's what's available on the website that we're getting this from, for starters. But also I think if it gets too much, if we make it too much better, we start getting kind of like heavy files. Oh, I guess it's only 3.8 megabytes, but this is, however wide this is like 3,000 pixels wide or whatever. So I also had to hack the little like Java GitHub repo that I used for generating the glyph images, because it had a cutoff at 2,000 pixels wide. So I was getting these lines that were randomly cut short. So I hacked it to like just set the max width to like 500 million pixels or something. So then it doesn't crop them anymore. It just makes them the width they need to be.
Gotcha.
But I was going to tell you guys about that later, because you would need to use that if you wanted to run through this entire workflow on your own machine to generate your own version of the website with your changes in it. But the creator of that project hasn't actually merged my pull request yet. Although I did talk to him, I raised an issue and we had a back and forth, and he said, like, go ahead and use that solution and just submit a PR and I'll merge it. Because I pointed out to him that this is a really inelegant solution, just, you know, setting some variable to some arbitrary number rather than actually figuring out how wide the image needs to be based on all your metrics and then choosing that. But, you know, if it's stupid but it works, it ain't stupid. Okay, so that's all I was working on. Which page was I working on? I was working on page 3. And here's the one I just did. And in fact, if I want to see it, let's see. I think this will do it. Is it generate web page? This actually moves everything. It literally moves the images, which is part of why it runs super slow like this, but it's worth it because it takes everything and puts it in a separate docs folder. So everything is now in here together. And this docs folder is what GitHub Pages uses to serve up the website. Once I've generated the website, I can obviously just I can go to docs just like your web browser would and open
A question. If you, I have an opinion about if you want to reduce the size of the pictures, maybe we can get rid of the papyrus background with the Photoshop or something like.
Yeah, you can. It's a really intensive process. You can try to automate it, and I've actually done this. So this was years ago now, but at some point in grad school, I created like a really simple convolutional neural network that would like recognize whether something was part of papyrus or part of script or part of lacuna in photos of an actual text. It worked pretty well. You know, it would label things like it would. This hieratic sign would be all green, and this background part would be all red, and this lacuna would be all blue, or whatever. Like it would label the pixels appropriately as being part of which part of the image they were. And then, of course, you can just select all the pixels that aren't part of the script and delete them, and you're left with the pure hieratic shapes in their pixelated form, however you end up with them. I don't like what I've done here with this. I want to undo that. Actually, I don't like how this turned out. The blurring of things. I think I saved it and closed it. So that means, what does that mean? It means I just need to get an older version. Yeah, Aurelio.
Just be really careful with automatic editing, trying to distinguish background from actual information. The reason I say that is because I've seen that in The Sailor, that fantastic book by Poe about using the shipwrecked sailor to learn hieratic. Great book. I love the commentary. I like the whole concept. Something that mars it a little bit for me, the way he shows the hieratic, is somebody has used I'm assuming a scanner tool to basically put the hieratic lines in. And there are tons of little artifacts, extra strokes that are impossible to do with the tools that they had at hand, but that can be done with a scanner. Missing lines, basically just small things that when missing, and I think that was done by a human. So if you let a neural network loose on that, I think the risk is even higher that you're going to adulterate the text. It's great for recognition to speed up processing of large numbers of texts, but I'm not sure I'd want to present that as the information, if that makes any sense. Just my perspective from what I've seen in the shipwrecked sailor.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely something that you think about when doing this. You think about how much are my interventions changing? Oh shoot! Well, I guess I can use this front image. No, this is considered front image. I can't remember how to do this thing. I was going to try to backtrack on my making these semi-transparent, but I stupidly saved it like that. Really, the best way to do that is I'm going to do the thing I just said. Actually, the best way to fix this is just to undo all the changes I just made to the repo, which I can do very simply. Sorry, JSesh is messing up my ability to zoom in and out. Let's just kill JSesh. Okay. I'm just going to close all of these because they don't exist anymore. And then I'm going to kind of put my money where my mouth is here. I just deleted the whole project. In fact, my current working directory is going to be erroneous when I try to, I don't think this is going to work. It's going to be invalid. Yeah, send me to trash. So the easiest way to do that is to do something like this. Go back and get a new terminal. And if anybody has tips, if you see me doing something and you're like, there's an easier way to do that, feel free to say so. But
I have a method about reduce the background, but not with Photoshop. Actually, it is with Infinite Photo. It is way more easier and basic than the Photoshop.
Okay, can you show us this? Because I don't know what this is.
Yeah, it's a Photoshop. Actually, it's a photo editing program. Another photo editing program. I can show. Yeah.
Oh, it's still
For example.
Okay, yeah, I'll just stop sharing. Show us.
Okay. Let me.
I use Photoshop because I've used Photoshop for more than 10 years now, and I know all the shortcuts that I need and stuff.
Yeah,
and I'm also affiliated with a academic institution, which means I have free access to it.
For example, this is the first line of the Horset story.
Mm-hmm.
Firstly, I just refill the black signs, like for example.
Yeah, just click on a sort of one that's like close to black.
Yeah.
If you uncheck that contiguous button up there, it will do the whole page for you.
Yeah.
It's a little checkbox. Yeah.
It is. Yeah, it is. It has about sensitivity in the program.
Right.
And the way to remove background, something like put the empty box, put the background deleting, and it is all about actually, for example, yeah.
Yeah, this is a really labor-intensive intervention, Mustafa. I think I can safely say most people won't do that. But
yeah, that could be, yeah.
I mean, you can if you want. I would also recommend, like, you want to. I'm just going to switch back. So you want to, you want to make changes that don't alter the underlying images, which is like the stupid mistake that I just made in working on this, where I tried something just off the cuff. Oh no. Why not? Why didn't it work? Oh gosh. Untracked working tree file icon. Wait. Yeah, there's why, I mean, why should there be anything? Where's Ralph? Ralph, what did I do? What I did wrong? I've got an untracked change, but how could I have an untracked change in a new repo? Untracked working tree file icon question mark would be overwritten by merge. I'm just going to do what this says and see how it turns out. I mean, when in doubt, do something. Oh, yeah. Ah, there we go. Okay, let's fix it. I don't actually know what mistake I made there. There shouldn't have been any. It's like some stupid, like file system file, like the little junk file is breaking everything. But I didn't have, there wasn't a Git repo for it to clash with. So I don't know. Yeah, that's above my pay grade, I think. Anyway, okay, so that's actually more than I meant to talk about this for. But if either of these tasks are something that you're interested in, it's a kind of a tedious and finicky thing, but there are two main tasks. They're divided into the task of typing in the hieroglyphs that then gets all like put together, and the task of photoshopping and cropping out the actual hieratic lines that show up on the web page. And then if you do either of those tasks, like if you make a change to this photo and you submit a pull request where you've cropped all the photos, you don't actually have to mess around with any of the code or anything. You don't have to do any of this. You just have to do the pull request thing, which we've talked about before. And obviously I'd be happy to help you if that's something that's still new for you. I'll tell you, Git has a really steep learning curve. I've used it on academic projects where I had to teach it to like classrooms full of undergrad students who had never used it before. And you're not going to ask a silly question. I promise you, it is really tough for people to get started with. So yeah, so if you did something like that, edited the images or typed in one of the hieroglyphic pages or something, you can just kind of share those changes with the main central repository. I'll regenerate the website with all those changes that you've made, and then later versions of this page, as you scroll down, will show your improvements to it. And then at some future point, this is kind of the carrot that comes along with that. At some future point, I'm just going to put all of this online, like for free, and probably put some English language info in there and everything so that Google finds it or whatever. And then this is going to be freely available to everyone. So, in the credits of who has worked on this, you get some amount of credit. In big projects, they like to do something called micro attributions, where if you make one edit, you actually get like a sort of academic credit for editing that one thing. This project is not really sophisticated enough for that, but if you work on it at any point, you get credited as one of the people who has worked on it. And I guarantee you that if you do any one of these interventions, like typing one of the pages or cropping out one of the lines, you'll have done 90% of the work to do an entire page, or to do, whatever. Because 90% of your time is figuring out how to make that work. And then it's the next 10 lines go really easily. So that's, I wanted to have I hoped it would have been shorter, but just a moment to sort of talk about how all this project works and how you can participate if you're interested, and what you might do at like any level of like skill or interest, right? There's like little small things you can do if you're kind of a little bit interested. There's things you can do that don't require any programming knowledge if you don't have any or don't want to learn about it. So yeah. Okay, so I guess we kind of put a marker here. Maybe I could put like a little chapter in the YouTube video. We'll go back to the hieratic text because it's more than enough said about the project. Again, if that's something you're interested in, but you feel like it looks really complicated and you're like, I don't know how that's going to work, just send me a message. I'll help you figure it out. Okay, so now what we end up with all of that is this web page, which I have specifically sort of tweaked to be maximally useful for us. We can zoom all the way out and see the entire line. We can zoom in as far as this, where the line gets super pixelated, and we wouldn't necessarily need to go farther than that. I'm surprised this is as far as we can go. Yeah, okay, well, whatever, that's what it is.
May I say, very impressive. This looks cool.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, you may always say that my work is impressive at any time. Anytime the spirit moves you, feel free to tell me. Okay, so last time we got to about here. Let's try that again. Here, I think we did this line. And we had a rather long conversation, as I remember, about how this line is like kind of a mixture of late Egyptian, Middle Egyptian-y stuff, because this really needs to be a kind of participle. The Aten, who brightens the two lands with his Inu, with his superficial appearance, right? And we don't have this actually marked as a late Egyptian participle with a pathetic E. So we have like an older epithet for the god that's being sort of retained into late Egyptian, which is neat. Always fun to see that. And I think we get another one here in the next line. So does anybody want to try to read this next line?
Okay. Maybe I can. Yeah.
Go for it.
The lacune. Yeah. Pahapi.
Yep.
Pahapi. And Weru.
I guess that ends here. Yeah. Yep.
Weru. Weru. Her.
Yep. Okay, we'll continue on the next line because there's just one more word that we've got to get in here.
Meh.
Yeah.
Her meh. On south. Happy. It is a god about related with a flooding of Nile.
Yeah.
Flooding of Nile.
In this case, I would probably just say just the Nile. Like he's the god of the Nile, Hapi.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, that's this name here. Hapi. He's often shown as like a chubby man. Happy god. Like a chubby blue man with a little, they've got a little bit of a belly and some moobs. Oh man, how often in class do you get to use the word moob in a sentence? Yeah, so this is the god of, obviously he's meant to be a god of like abundant food and things. So yeah, there you go. Okay, so that's who we're looking at here. This is a different version. Sorry. Yeah, here's one. Okay, so that's this guy, the Hapi. And what about him?
Weru, great on the actually it's an epithet or something like of Happy. I don't know. Great on the south or on the delta. I don't know. Like
you're thinking of Mehu, which is delta or north, but I mean that's not really north south, upper lower. That's always super confusing. Mehu is north. Res is Resi is or Shema.
South.
Sorry, is the So there's like delta land and then valley land. That's south, right? Upper. It's confusing. That's not what this word means, though. This is just meh. It could be two things in late Egyptian. I think Christian posted something about this in the Discord. You're close. Complete is close. One of the things that it can be, which is not correct here, is to grab, and that's the Coptic verb amahte, which means to grasp. It's often written as just meh in late Egyptian. The T is not always written. And then there's another word. You might recognize it if I put the Coptic.
No. Yeah. Actually, in this context, overfilled or something like.
Yeah, good. Yeah, something like overflow.
Overflow, yeah. Because and because it's also related to flood. Yeah, that's more like.
Yeah. So putting it all together, we could read this. Yeah, the
Nile or Happy.
Yep.
Overflow.
Yeah, great upon filling.
Great upon filling. Yeah.
Yeah. And that again, like you said, that's an epithet. He's great upon filling. Doesn't translate all that nicely, but you can kind of tell, like you might, if you wanted to make a sort of really loose, casual translation, you'd say like big old fat Happy who overflows. So whatever. We're just celebrating his, like, the abundance that he represents. Having more than enough food is certainly a reason to celebrate. Okay.
Question on that, if I may.
Yeah,
So
go ahead, Aurelio.
using her here as to complete the epithet, great upon, is that common? Could it be a misspelling for something else? I'm just a bit surprised, that's all. Having that as a compliment, so to say, great upon, overflowing with a khr or he in there.
It is not very familiar to me. I think it's one of, I can honestly say your question is a good one. And it's a case where you've like bumped up against a boundary in my own knowledge of this. Because I'm just kind of parroting like what I understand as like a standard like description is like the great one of the Nile flood. When great upon flooding, just kind of just taking it literally. Let's see if we have any. We have all the words to be sure. And your question is like, is this a standard formula that we could expect to see somewhere else? Like for instance, we see like Sutek, what is it? Pehti, I think, if I remember correctly, like great of strength. You don't see like hair Pehti, great upon strength. So then a question could be like, is this hair, is this the actually the pseudo verbal? Like,
yeah, it's pseudo verbal and something like was overflowing or is overflowing.
Big hoppy who is flooding. That's fine too. As long as you get from the hieroglyphs that it's ha hoppy weru hair meh, and you understand all of that, that's normally like close enough for jazz in Egyptology terms. I'm trying to see if I have the translation open. I guess I don't. I have a bunch of other random stuff. Sorry. I was going to see what the translation actually says, because that would be helpful. I don't know how they translate this. Yeah, do you have thoughts, Aurelio?
No, it just did strike me as odd. I was not just thinking as the title of the god, as the title of the god himself, but more construction-wise. Like when you have, I don't know, sharp or face, for example, right? That's constructed with the genitive, or they like to use, yeah, for example, or what was it, or something like that. Not Ika, sorry. What is it? What's the sharp again? I forgot. But never mind. You can have it by direct genitive. You could have an R as a preposition to form something. Her, just the first time I ran into it, so I was wondering, are there parallels to it? But we can also postpone that to. That sounds like something that could be possibly answered by a mass data search.
Yeah.
So I don't want to drag us down.
That's how I would try to answer it. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any. I might wake up in the morning tomorrow and think of one, but yeah, it doesn't seem like something common to me. It's also one of those things where like, you're always kind of doing this optimization about like, how curious am I about this thing versus how long would it take to figure out the answer? Because like there are infinite number of, in theory, an infinite number of questions we might try to answer about ancient Egypt in the course of like researching the subject, and you kind of pick your battles a little bit. I think that's one that I just like when I read the text, I was like, great upon flooding. Yeah, good enough. And I just kind of moved on. So your question, as I say, is a good one because you've actually like, you've honed in on something where I just kind of hand waved it away. And I don't really know the answer to your question. And it didn't occur to me to even ask, which is, worth noting for sure. Never hurts to think to ask, and then you can make a sort of thoughtful decision about whether it's worth trying to figure out or not. Aurelio, do you want to do a couple of sentences since I already have you in front of me?
I finished eating. Okay. So we have re, harachti. That's just spelled out very long with a fake dual. Oh no, it could be a real dual. Or horizontal.
Yeah, we discussed this in a previous thing, but yeah, Ray. No, you tell me. Sorry, I shouldn't have talked over you.
No, it's. I mean, either way, like you said, we discussed it. So let's just leave it at that. Maybe the horizontal horus there
Yep.
which I just love. A neat where, oh, hang on.
All right, just getting adjusted here. And Nate.
A neat, and then just with the bird on a stick. Well, the great, okay, this the great Mut Nature, or Miut Nature, the mother of the god.
Good.
The next one I would have wanted to say Sehedjet, but there's no head, so there's just Sedge.
Oh, nice. Good catch. I didn't even notice. Yeah. We want like a little, this little guy.
Oh, and it's in the hieratic. I was looking at the transcript.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay.
So
Yeah, I
it's
was
just
looking at
a
the transcription
transcription
too.
error. Okay, that
Yeah,
makes
that's
actually,
it actually is. It's right there.
This sign is not actually.
Yeah, it is.
It is
It's here.
probably is a maze or not a green sign. Or this is something like white sign.
I'm pretty sure it's a hedge. So we've got the classifier that normally goes with a hedge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we got this one too. The sun disk. I just it's a typo when I transcribed it. Maybe Gardner omitted it and I copied his error, or I just simply didn't type it in when I was typing the line.
It's there in Gardner.
It's there in Gardner. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah.
Thank you, Aaron, for keeping me honest. I appreciate it.
We're not going to blame the dead guy, huh?
Lest there be any doubt, Christian, this is your screw up. Just FYI.
Well, I don't mean it like that.
No, it's good to know. No, that's what you guys are supposed to do, is keep me honest. I'm just gonna make a note, and I'm like physically making a note with a pen on a piece of paper because I've just gotten lazy with tech at this point. Okay, and then I'll go and fix it, and then I'll get to do all that like fun, like repository stuff, you know. Gosh, all that fun repository stuff is not a pleasant sounding sentence. I'll do all that stuff where I put the sign in and update it, and run the code and put it online and all that, generate the images, all that kind of good stuff. Okay, so let's pretend that it's written correctly. You neat where at mute nature the hedge.
Sehedjet, so I'm assuming this is again one of those four participles who's illuminating.
Yep.
And what is she illuminating? Herdepi on anchto.
I think this is it. I think this is a boundary, like a clause boundary.
Okay, all right. Who's illuminating, or who illuminated the first phase?
That's
the
it.
Topmost phase. Okay.
Yeah. And as to what that means, I mean, that's where you go into mythology, because it's like, I guess Neat, there's some myth about Neat that she is also like the sun that shone on the face of Atum while he was on his island. Who knows? I honestly don't. I don't know to that. It's not a myth I've ever heard, so I don't understand the epithet to that level of precision, but I can definitely read it, right? What's this EU, Aurelio? What's this doing here?
I mean, normally I would say while.
Yeah, I think that's fine. You can say that here too.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it's this long string of gods and titles that's the part of the invocation at the beginning.
Right.
So I guess it's almost like an Oxford comma in there. You're just trying to break down the sentence somehow.
Yeah, that's a good way to think of it. I think Oxford comma is a great way to think of it. It is the equivalent of the circumstantial, etc. Coptic this word EU that gets way more attention than it maybe deserves in our conversations about grammar. It's that thing. So we've started the letter. We're saying we're writing to Neat. And then we list all the signatories to the letter first, big important man A, big important man B, et cetera. And now we're getting down to business a little bit. So we're going to say the name of the addressee. So we're going to put a little like, meanwhile, Neat, the great Neat is the mother of gods who illuminates the first face. And then what are we saying to Neat?
Well, oh, that's a very leading question. That's funny. The way you ask it, because
Yeah.
basically, let's do the glyphs first. Anchtu or Anchte, that's where we're gonna get in a moment. Basically, what is that? Synipte and Renpitu or Renpite. So what is that? I was thinking, just continuing in the long string of participles. Thought it was like the living, the healthy, or maybe the useful one. But you're pointing me in a different direction.
Yeah, I am. This is a tricky direction though, because I'm not sure that this is a standard late Egyptian feature. I'd have to go look at a grammar to check this. I read this.
You read it
well,
as
because
a
I know it's a, yeah, because I know it's a
maybe.
letter. Yeah.
And
I know it's a
makes lot of
letter. I
sense.
know this is a salutation of a letter. And this is and this is clearly, you know, we've all seen this thing. Oh, this thing, right? Akuja Seneb or LPH, like
Right.
life, prosperity, and health. This is clearly echoing that sort of thing. So I would expect it to be one of two things. I feel like you're reading it as a description of
Right.
Neat, which I think is fine. And then the other way to read it is, like you said, put in the word may you, etc. You want to, what have we said yet? What we're saying here? May you be alive, may you be healthy, may you be young. This is the way I read it.
And I like it a lot because, to your point, the next line, basically, that's where we get to business. I mean, everything so far was just preamble, invoking all the relevant parties, and then having something at the end that says, may you be this, this, and this. I don't know, I don't have much experience with letters and petitions in Egyptian, but it feels right. If that is true, though, then what is this verb form? What would that be?
Good
If it is
question.
a may you be.
I mean, keep in mind that in late Egyptian, we're not super committed to our choice here.
Right. So it doesn't have to be a two, really. It could be a T, a T, it could be
T.
some kind of, yep.
I want to make it a T. Ankti, Senebti, Renpiti.
And
Because then
what-
that would give us the Middle Egyptian second person feminine singular dative form. Ankti.
Right.
Straight out of a book. And then in that case, if it were written straight out of a book, this T would be written this guy, right?
Right.
The T biliteral and then the reed leaf. Yeah.
Very true.
All right, so we're almost out of time. I'm not sure if we fully answered the question on that. I just realized we haven't really been looking at the hieratic, so we'll just do that very quickly. I'm sorry. Please feel free to remind me if I omit anything. Oh, whoops, it's the wrong bird. Confuse my birds. You cannot confuse your birds if you want to be a Egyptologist, that's for sure. You got to know one bird from another. Okay, so we got pa, and then the H is here. It's a little bit cut off at the side by the lacuna, but conveniently, this particular lacuna doesn't actually, it just kind of takes where the edges of these letters are. So we still have enough of them to say that they're fully there. This little hand is kind of terrible. It's very squished, but there it is. And we know what this word is. Ha hop, we have the 3 water sign. We have this huge conglomeration of the little E sign and the ped sign, or like building. This is like, what is this? This is like a large building with sort of like fortified corners viewed from above. So yeah, there it is. And then this sign is missing, but we can guess what it probably is. Sign under it, let's just get that. I don't actually see the sign under it in the hieratic, to be honest.
Nope,
Should be here, but I don't see this. what line is this? I'm gonna make a note about this. Line 10. Okay, I'm just gonna check. Gardner probably has a note about that because
Maybe
it's
you
not.
put on a stick in between. Is that possible?
Well, he does have one. Oh, you mean in here somewhere? Yeah, I feel like we have a vertical sign here.
Yep, I think there's a vertical sign there.
Yeah, but it's just not totally clear. Then we get, I actually should have shaded this differently because we do have most of this where I can just shade it with like a half shading block to show that we actually do have at least half of the sign there. And then the ooh, bird on a stick, face. And then, oh, this sign probably requires a conversation because we're gonna have to look this up. Okay, so since we're out of time, I'm gonna stop us here. And we'll start again next time with the hieratic that begins line 11, because we're definitely going to have to look at what's going on. If you've seen it before, it kind of sometimes goes like this. And I think yeah, but we'll talk about it. I'm gonna have to look it up.
This looks
I'll look it up myself. Yeah, it's weird. It's definitely will require at least a 5-minute conversation to be sure that that's what we're seeing. So yeah, so we'll start there next time, and I'll see y'all in Late Egyptian. We'll do some exercises. Bye, everyone.
Hi.